He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about to explode bratwurst.
Hey, you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munson's at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will once again be your host, joined by the rest of the Munsons. Want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. We will start this time with James.
Glad to be here. Excited to talk a little Cameron Diaz with you guys. School just started up again this semester for me. So right now, syllabus week, so I can devote all my time to this podcast. And then next week, I'll disappear again.
Case.
At the end of the holidays, I had some extra time on my hands, so I started doing a rewatch of what I consider one of the most underrated shows in history, and it's Criminal. AMC's Hell on Wheels. And I am rewatching it, and I have decided that after the rewatch, I'm 100% correct. If anything, I think it's better. The reason I bring that up is that Cameron Diaz is in a movie that I feel like is also very underrated. And anytime I've watched it with somebody, they have also said, I didn't realize that movie was as much fun to watch. A little tease for later in the episode. I am interested in what you guys are going to say, though.
Rigby.
This is the time of year movies are nominated, or they release the Oscar nominations, so I'm going to be cramming in all 10 before the award show in March. Sadly to say, 2 years later, I still haven't seen Parasite after all the shit you guys gave me.
It's on Hulu.
I know it's on Hulu.
Do it tonight.
I know. And James watched Kingpin, so I feel like
I know. Wrong side of history, man.
I owe it to you guys.
In a run of like maybe Best Picture winners that shouldn't have been, Parasite, I think, fully earned it. You need to get your shit together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on.
The movie's great.
Literally, tonight when we're done, that's your homework, Rigby. No eating, no shitting, nothing else, no sleeping. That's what you're doing.
I'll promise you this. The next time we record, I'll have watched Parasite. There you go.
Whoa.
Hold them to it.
You heard it.
You heard it here first. My end, it's a big week, just like Oscars. It is Sundance week.
Ooh.
So by the time this will have come out, I will have participated in the Sundance Film Festival experience.
That's your Super Bowl.
It is my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I was planning to be in Park City, in Salt Lake City, for the event this week, but because of COVID and the Omarion variant, they've decided not to do that. And I think I've got tickets to like 13 or 14 movies from between like Thursday and then the Wednesday right before we drop the episode. So I'll be watching a bunch from home. James may pop over from whenever his schedule allows him. I'm excited for that, but I'm also excited to bring back one of our favorite guests of the podcast. That's Aubrey McKay.
Woo.
He lives in the home of the Detroit Tigers, Lakeland, Florida, where he teaches high school history. He's a collector and lover of movies and also writes about movies at moviebabble.com. Great website. Check it out.
Yes, it is.
He was previously with us for the Chris Rock and Aubrey Plaza episodes. Welcome back, Aubrey. How are you? And tell our audience about any changes in the blogging movie review world that you guys have going on.
Currently, I'm jealous because I have a singular ticket to Sundance. And I'm not even 100% sure I can see that one movie. There's been some big changes in the blogging world for us. My wife and I ended our website, the post-credit scene, about halfway through last year. We stopped and took a break because we have an opportunity to work together with another friend of ours who makes movies to do some stuff coming in the next year or so.
Cool.
So we'll still be writing and doing some stuff in that space. But we needed to take a break to kind of reevaluate some things and then get things set up with him. So in a few months, we'll get that website with him launched and we'll be doing some different things in that space. So there's some changes there, a lot of transition, but it's been good. Everything's been good.
That sounds intriguing and awesome at the same time.
Well, we're glad to have you, man. Excited to talk about some Cameron Diaz. Diaz, is it? Yeah. Diaz?
I said this to Kyle earlier. Nobody delivers a line better than Martin Lawrence, man.
It's hard to argue with that one.
He's awesome.
Let's get into birthdays. January 27th.
Birthdays for January 27th. First up, we have James Cromwell. You might know him from his performances in Babe, Green Mile, Longest Yard, and my favorite role of his, LA Confidential. He's also currently in Succession, if you watch that on HBO.
He's great in Succession.
Mm-hmm. I will preface that he's looked old for a long time.
Yeah,
This one's going to be tough.
He looked old in Babe, and that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
This response.
I had to look his picture up because I was like, I couldn't place his name. I looked him up and I was like, oh, it's the old guy I've seen in like 50 million things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with Cromwell. We said he's old. I'm going to go with like 73. That feels right.
78.
I'm saying 80.
Give me 83.
All right, Aubrey gets the win. He's actually turning 82.
Oh,
Man.
Almost had it.
So Craig was closer, but Price of Right rules means that Aubrey takes the W on that one.
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Respect for James Cromwell. He's put in a great career, and he's still grinding today, so good for him. Next up, Bridget Fonda, daughter of Peter Fonda and granddaughter of Henry Fonda, in such films as Jackie Brown, A Simple Plan, and Single White Female. How old is Bridget Fonda?
The Road to Wellville, which we mentioned last episode.
I think she's her mother, I believe. I am confusing the Fondas.
Jane, yeah.
Jane is her aunt.
And
Yep.
no clue.
I'm super confused right now.
54. I'll start us off. 54.
Throw just 60 out. I don't know.
I'll do 55. Maybe she's a little younger than him.
56.
Get him, Aubrey. That's right.
I think Aubrey won again. She's turning 58.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Cleaning up today.
Yeah.
Cleaning up. Let's see if he can go 3-0. Next up, or I should say last but not least, is Patton Oswalt, a famous comedian and star of notable sitcoms and television series. Also a prolific Twitter account for those that have Twitter.
He was also Remy in Ratatouille.
I love that.
Yep. And he is the narrator of the Goldberg show on ABC currently.
52.
Ooh.
52?
57.
I'm going to go lower. I'm thinking 45.
50.
Aubrey is 3-0.
Come on.
Cheating.
Patton's turning 53. So he's currently 52, which is what Aubrey guessed. But yeah, he wins again.
This guy.
I thought I would be terrible at this game.
Well, you nailed all three.
This is my way out of teaching. Just guess birthdays.
Real lucrative career in
Yeah.
guessing birthdays.
Thriving industry.
Aubrey, the plus side is you can make some money. The downside is you're going to have to be a carny and travel the country.
I bet I could guess your age and weight immediately.
Great job. Clean sweep.
All right, 5 actors onto the wheel for this episode 54. And those 5 were Viggo Mortensen, Roger Bart, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Emile Hirsch. But none of them were selected by the wheel. The wheel chose Cameron Diaz, who has 57 credits on her resume. And almost all of them are film related. And about 20 to 25% are all Shrek related, which we'll get into. So you could take that 57 and pull out a chunk of 11 to 12 of them. And
They're all Shrek related.
yeah.
The wheel hates Abraham Lincoln, and I don't like it.
Wait, why? Why does it? What?
Abraham Lincoln's a vampire hunter, and it didn't even want us to talk about it.
I forget that you bring that movie up randomly every few. Yeah,
That's why you wanted to marry Elizabeth Winstead. So we
that's
could
right.
talk about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Let's get into some Diaz. And before we do that, let's see if James can stump us in the trivia realm.
Yes. So Aubrey, you're a returning guest. You know the rules. So for newer listeners, what I am about to do is read off 3 facts here. 2 of them are true in regards to Cameron Diaz, and one of them is in fact not true and will be true about a member of the Fast and the Furious franchise cast. So that is a huge cast. You do not have to guess which cast member. You just have to guess which one is not true about Cameron Diaz. Fact number 1. She was discovered by a photographer at a Hollywood party who helped her land a contract modeling at the age of 16. Fact number 2. She attended high school at the same time as Snoop Dogg, someone who she's maintained a friendship with to this day. Fact number 3. She is the 6th actress in history who'd been paid over $20 million to play a role.
Ooh.
These all might be true.
I think that number 2 is true because she's from Long Beach. I know that. Number 3, I know she's one of the highest paid of all time, so I think that's true as well. So I'm going to go 1 is the lie, and I think that's Gal Gadot.
I'm going to go 1, 2. And I'm going to say Jordana Brewster.
Good guesses, both of you.
Interesting you said that, Aubrey, because I was actually going to say number 2 was false because that was Jordana Brewster, the co-star of Invisible Circus.
I did not watch.
Also great friends with Snoop Dogg. Everyone knows that.
Yes.
Guys,
Oh, no.
These all might be true, but you know who went to high school with Snoop Dogg? Secunda Wood from the Fast and Furious animated series.
You have to leave that woman alone. You have to.
I'm here to be her brand ambassador, and Secunda Wood, she's a legend. She went to high school with Snoop.
Kyle, I do want to tell you something. When you started referencing her name, her IMDb rating was only 81,000. She peaked a couple weeks ago at 46,000.
Thank you, Kyle.
So maybe it's working, Kyle.
Secunda, have your people contact my people. All
It
right.
sounds like a theory you guys should workshop. And
Actually, no, it'll work 1, 2, 3 here. So was discovered by a photographer at the age of 16 at a party. That is true. And Cameron Diaz actually left home and high school at 16. And for the next 5 years, lived in Japan, Australia, Mexico, Morocco, and Paris until she returned to California at the age of 21 and was still working as a model before she landed her first role, which we'll discuss, which was The Mask. So modeling immediately fell to the wayside when you're that successful for your first role. Fact number 2, went to high school with Snoop Dogg at the same time, maintained a friendship. Also true, they went to Long Beach Polytech. High school, the two didn't have similar friend groups, as you can imagine, based on Snoop Dogg's rap. They became friends shortly after high school, since they both ascended to stardom literally like 2 or 3 years apiece after they were supposed to be out of high school. Snoop Dogg had a funny quote. He said, like, yeah, she was cool. I used to sell weed to her and her friends, but we didn't run in the same crowds. She was on the dance team and I was in the Crips, which I thought was a great line. Yeah, it's like, yeah, she was cool, but like we were not friends, so I won't pretend that we.
I love that honesty.
Honesty. We're fine now. And she's the 6th actress in history who's been paid over $20 million for a role. Gal Gadot is actually the 6th actress in history. She's most famously known as Giselle Yashar from Fast and Furious and Fast and Furious 6. She earned a $20 million paycheck for Red Notice on Netflix. Cameron Diaz was the 2nd actress ever to get paid $20 million, just after Julia Roberts.
Wow.
So she wasn't number 6, but she is on that list. And so there's only 6 actresses of all time who've been paid that amount for a singular role.
Wow.
that's a great.
Look, I don't know if it's been a long time since you stumped all of us.
And you know what? I thought the $20 million one, I thought that would be picked on. That one's very misleading. So I have to try to stump you guys. I don't have a choice at this point.
That was really good. All right. Snapshot in box office history. I'm really fascinated to learn about this one case because I know the ratings from Rotten Tomatoes didn't seem great, but I know she's made a lot of money and usually make a lot of money because you bring people to the theater. So I'm interested to hear more.
That fact that James just talked about, with her being the 2nd actress ever to have a $20 million payday. I mean, in Hollywood, it's nothing's guessing, and they're educated bets at worst, more likely sure things. And I would describe Cameron Diaz as the most predictably successful performer we've looked at. She's got 34 films on my spreadsheet. Only 2 of them have lost money.
Wow.
One lost $20 million, which was a bomb, and that was The Very Bad Things. And then the other one, which surprised me, was A Life Less Ordinary. That lost $7 million. But what was surprising about that is that that's a $12 million budget. And we'll talk about that movie a little bit later. But in the late 90s, A Life Less Ordinary should not have been budgeted for $12 million. So I don't know that the box office loss falls on her as much as it does maybe the studio in that one. Where I think she kicks ass in the money side of things is that her average film budget is 10th, which if you think about it, she's somebody that could easily have been pegged to be a rom-com girl next door role. And those characters are not in major box office movies. She gets hammered in rankings by both fans and critics. But overall, she ranks 23rd in Star Meter, which was about right. Her average critic ranking is 49.6%, which puts her 46th. 55% in fan rankings, which puts her 45th. And then, like I talked about with the box office stuff, she ranks 7th and 13th. All of those numbers averaged out, she falls 32nd on our rankings. And it's really because of the fan and critic rankings she got hammered on. She's real low in those.
Yeah, there's a lot of certified rotten on her Rotten Tomatoes profile.
But the thing that I think is so interesting is, I don't know if we've done anybody where I've known more movies than her. A lot of times, Kyle, you kind of have to do the same thing, deciding some role significance. I'm trying to remember how much she was in a movie, and every movie I tapped, like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember. I mean, it was almost every movie I didn't have any doubt on. So she's been in some massive projects.
Definitely a leading lady in most of the movies she's been in up to this point.
Yeah,
for sure.
I saw an article Forbes did in 2007. It said for every dollar that she got paid, her movies averaged $9 of gross income.
Oh wow!
I don't know if her agent is the one who wrote that article, but that is a pretty ringing endorsement of box office success.
Why I'm Rich.
Wow, that is huge.
That's the pen manager.
Yeah.
Why I'm Rich, a memoir from Cameron Diaz's agent.
Yeah. And that was before she was doing the sequels to Shrek that were just bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars for the fun of it.
Wow.
Okay. That's an interesting snapshot. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man.
All right, so first major roles in 94, some early life notes for Cameron to better understand where she comes from and some of her earlier context. As James had mentioned, Long Beach gal who's got Cuban roots in her family, which is interesting. And as James had mentioned, she got that modeling contract with Elite Model Management. While in high school, was doing ads for Calvin Klein's and Levi's and traveling all over the world, Australia and different places. It's not her first film role, but a really interesting thing that happened to her in 93 that has become a thing she's had to deal with, unfortunately, since then is in 93, she participated in a project called She's No Angel. It was an S&M leather fashion shoot where she's not nude, but she is dressed in S&M outfits, and there's a lot of chains. And let's just say if you want to find this clip, it's not readily available online. You're going to have to dig for it to find it because it's been buried by the powers that be over the years. This is something that she did in her early career, right before she got big. And as we'll talk about in 2003, she actually got blackmailed with it by a guy and then had to deal with it a decade later after doing that shoot.
I find it so fascinating because like where we've come as like a pop culture, like now like people perform concert tours in outfits like that, and like no one bats an eye. They're like, oh yeah, it's just kind of, bad bitch wearing sexy stuff. Like it is what it is. And back then that was like potential career killer.
Her first major role was really her first movie role, which normally we don't see. We see a few like smaller cameos, right? And then maybe they get a couple film roles where it's supporting. She comes straight out of the gate with 1994's The Mask, which we're calling first major role. And Aubrey, as our guest Munson, drew first major role this time around. And he's going to talk a little bit about the movie and her performance and any other random thoughts he has.
I've got to be a little honest going into this one. This was probably my least exciting rewatch. I put this one off as far as I could. I haven't seen this movie in over 20 years. I'm 34 now. I haven't seen this movie in over 20 years. And one, I was laughing with my friend I was watching with because I remember so much about this movie. Like we were calling out scenes that were going to happen and lines. Mm-hmm. So that part I found interesting. But so when I was thinking about it, I try very hard to apply a level of critical thought to everything that I watch. I feel like you have to review this movie in two different ways. I don't think a plot description is really all that necessary for The Mask. Like if you don't know what The Mask is about by now, you'll never know because there's no reason for you to watch it. But like as a younger person, I see exactly why this movie was appealing to me at the time and why like my generation of young people like that movie. It is funny for a kid. Jim Carrey's bits are funny, and Cameron Diaz is a wildly effective person to cast in that role for a young teenage boy. And so that part worked. Watching it as an adult, this movie is completely ridiculous. I just like.
You mean adult putting on a mask is not feasible? Wouldn't be a thing.
Completely ridiculous. But like, I'm not a big physical comedy guy, so like, I knew going into it that I was going to struggle with that part. But the movie just isn't very clever. It doesn't even really get its base like commentary right. Like there is a metaphor in this movie that is available to them. And they kind of choose to ignore it, so they don't even really do that. This movie is kind of just silly nonsense for 100 minutes. And as an adult, I didn't really find it all that appealing. But like Cameron Diaz part, there's not really a ton to say about her because like she's really just literally there to be eye candy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is effective, but it's also like that part of it doesn't really age all that well either because going through this, I think she is a very talented actor now. Like this is I'll talk about a little bit later, but I didn't have that opinion going into this. But I have that opinion now. So seeing her in this movie just dance and have all of these men just like really kind of grossly go after her was kind of sad because it was like we wasted an opportunity to use someone really talented in an interesting way.
And what you mentioned about you finding respect for her as you go through her filmography, I am the exact same way as I was going through this. I had like this preconceived notion about how I felt about her. And I think it was originally based off of the fact that I saw The Mask when I was like an 8-year-old. And I was like, oh, Cameron Diaz, she's really, really hot. And that is all my brain retained. And then as I was going through her movies, and as we'll discuss, way, way different. I think I totally agree with you. I think she is a very talented comedic actress. And this is a comedy. And you're right, she is fully just eye candy for this movie. But unlike you, I did enjoy The Mask. But it was the mindset of, yeah, it's stupid. The plot doesn't really make any sense. But it's kind of adult humor for like 8 and 9-year-olds. So they feel like, oh, he said a bad word. This is a little deeper than I'm used to. And I think that is probably the reason I loved it so much when I was younger.
She's like a Michael Bay character in this, basically. Just like...
Yes. And the bad guy is 100% a Michael Bay bad guy.
She is a Michael Bay.
Slicked back hair, smoking cigarettes the whole time.
Yep. Kyle, one of the reasons I love our format is because we get to do this. We get to watch their first film, and then it gives us an opportunity then to see it throughout their career. And I will say that we'll talk about a movie later. I found an article with a director, and he said that she was the top of their list for the female lead in a movie later in her career simply because of The Mask. Kind of like Aubrey was saying, what they saw.
You know, she's not distractingly bad as an actress in it. I think she's... You wouldn't be able to tell it's her first role.
No.
It's cool that this is her first role, but it's not on the level of like Edward Norton in Primal Fear for his first role, where you're like, holy shit, this guy stole the show. But she's not bad.
I mean, to be fair, she stole the show, but it wasn't for her acting.
Yeah, it wasn't for her acting. And as we'll talk about, this kind of... Again, this became her pocket for the early part of her career and led to kind of all the roles that are about to come.
If you told any young actress or actor that your first role, you're just going to be like eye candy for the male or female viewer, and it's going to make $200 million, you'd be like, yeah, sign me up 10 times out of 10. I'll figure out the next steps of my career, but I absolutely want to be in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take that payday or the paydays it'll lead to.
I have a really interesting quote, and it relates to what you guys are saying from her. In an interview, she said, the whole time I just laughed my way through. I laughed so much. We models are used to doing what we're told. So I just went with it, had a lot of fun with Jim Carrey and Chuck Russell. I remember one time I asked them if there was a way my parents could watch the movie, and they were like, yeah, at the movie theater.
Yeah.
I had no conception of what doing a $20 million movie meant.
I think it's a great quote to illuminate. She's just like, I'm just having a good time.
Yeah.
I got a big role in a big movie, so let's go. Right, that's exactly what every young actor or actress wants. Well, let's kind of keep the momentum going. So coming out of The Mask, she's in 95's The Last Supper, played a character named Jude, a movie about a group of liberals who invite conservatives over to dinner to murder them. I haven't seen it, but that's the synopsis that I read about it. So now I'm interested and I kind of want to watch it.
Sounds interesting.
After The Mask, she intentionally was picking out supporting roles in smaller budgeted films to help extend her range. So she would basically be practicing, trying to build up a better acting range, but not being in like massive films that everybody was going to see.
I mean, that's smart.
Mm-hmm.
Most actors aren't doing that. Most are just taking what they can get early on.
I think it had a lot to do with the fact that like she had no acting experience and was like readily admitting that. And was like, I need to practice.
These next movies that you're talking about after the Mask are intentional.
Well, she does an episode of Space Ghost Coast to Coast in 96, and then is in Feeling Minnesota as a character named Freddie, also in 96.
That was with Keanu Reeves, right?
Yes.
Never saw it.
I don't know much about it. But an early one, I found this fascinating as I was like hunting around for Cameron Diaz facts.
Same.
Apparently she was supposed to be in Mortal Kombat. I'm guessing she was going to be Sonya Blade.
Ooh.
She broke her hand while training.
How much more money would that movie have made?
For real.
Cameron Diaz in the 90s as Sonya Blade?
instead of Veronica Vaughn from Billy Madison as Sonya Blade.
I'm in on this like alternate universe.
Full thought.
I like it.
That would have been really interesting to see her in a fighting role, because I've seen her fighting in Charlie's Angels. It is not that impressive. So her as Sonya, I don't know if I could have bought that. Too tall and lanky.
To be fair, I don't think the action being bad in Charlie's Angels is her fault.
No, it's part of the charm of the movie. But anyways, My Best Friend's Wedding, 1997. She played Kimberly alongside Julia Roberts, I believe, right?
This movie was a hit, and she was great in it as kind of the wedding obsessed, heartbroken fiance, I guess you could call her. But yeah, I thought she was good in this.
I just rewatched this with my wife. You remember why it's so famous and successful, but what I didn't remember is how nice of a person Cameron Diaz's character is and how shitty of a person Julia Roberts' character is.
This is the takeaway from this movie.
Yes, like you watch it, you're like, wow.
The morals in this movie are way off. It is terrible. Julia Roberts is horrible in this movie. It is.
They have the audience rooting for the bad guy because it's shown from her perspective. And then, like, in rewatching, I was like, wow, Cameron Diaz is being nothing but, like, the nicest person on earth.
I think it's safe to say that this is, like, when you think of, like, a romantic comedy, like, this is one of the top 5 that come to mind for me. Like, whether it's... And that's probably says more about Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz.
It fits in with that. Like, I like romantic comedies. I love that genre. And as soon as it started, I kind of just felt that like comfort, that you relax, settle in. This is going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy this. And it plays true really good in this. I was surprised at how good she was.
Also 97, she's in A Life Less Ordinary, the movie Case talked about that lost a bunch of money. Also with Holly Hunter and Stanley Tucci. And she crossed over with both of those a few times in her career. Despite she has a short filmography, it tend to be actors she works with quite a bit.
In an interview, Danny Boyle, the director of this, said he was given a list of young female actresses that ended up being massive stars, and he still wanted Cameron Diaz, and they waited for her to finish filming My Best Friend's Wedding in order to do this. And he said it was simply because of what they saw when they watched The Mask.
She makes a brief appearance, I believe, in 98's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas as a news reporter.
Hunter S. Thompson story, right?
Yep.
Let me guess. Johnny Depp acted weird.
That is the crux of it, yes. But no matter if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, most of us are going to enjoy There's Something About Mary. And she played Mary in that one, 98. A role that got her first award recognition. She got a Golden Globe nom for Best Actress.
I was born in 1989. You guys might disagree with this, but I can safely say that this is the funniest movie that's been released in my lifetime.
Wow.
I saw it in theaters when I wasn't supposed to. I think I was probably 10. Didn't get 90% of the jokes, but the ones I did get, I don't think I've laughed so hard in my life. And it's still equally as watchable today as it was in 99 when it came out. Farrelly Brothers movie, I think this was the movie they did after Kingpin, so their run of Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, and There's Something About Mary is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the same characters, Chris Elliott, Lynn Shay, like a lot of the usual suspects.
And Cameron Diaz is everything you want her to be in this. She's funny, she's gorgeous, just knocks it out of the park. Every character in this is awesome. It's a world-class comedy, and I'm glad it stood the test of time.
And remember, Keith David is in this as well, when we talked about this on the Keith David episode.
Hilarious.
He's about Frank.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best lines in the movie.
Take a look at what this numbnuts did. Even though, like, it's funny, even though she, like, breaks all these guys' hearts, like, you obviously cheer for her more than anybody in the movie, just because you want her to, you want her to end up with a guy that makes her happy at the end of the day.
Testament to her acting.
I love Matt Dillon's character as such a slimeball. I think he played that role hilariously.
And I read that after, or at least during filming and post, she started dating Matt Dillon because of this movie.
Interesting.
So his character won in the end, is what you're saying.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
But riding that high, 99's Being John Malkovich's highest critic score, a role that earned her Golden Globe, BAFTA, and SAG noms. A role that's a little bit different from the other stuff we've seen from her. And Rigby has it.
So this is a movie that I hadn't seen all the way through, and I'm glad I was able to do that for the podcast, as we'll get to. So Being John Malkovich is a 1999 dark comedy film directed by Spike Jonze and written by Charlie Kaufman. Charlie Kaufman has also done other critically acclaimed movies like Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I think we've covered all of those on the podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
The movie features John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, Catherine Keener, and surprise, surprise, Mr. John Malkovich. The plot of the movie is John Cusack plays a puppeteer named Craig. He's down on his luck and ends up getting a job at a quirky office. And while there, he discovers a portal that allows those who enter it to view life through the eyes and the mind of actor John Malkovich. Once Craig enters the portal, he shares his unique experience with his wife, Lottie, played by Cameron Diaz, who then becomes obsessed with the portal, and she herself will do anything and everything that she can to enter the mind of John Malkovich. With the help of Craig's coworker, Maxine, played by Catherine Keener, the two discover that they can profit off of it, and they begin charging people to enter the mind of Malkovich, all while Malkovich doesn't know this is going on inside his own head. Eventually, the actor discovers the portal and so Malkovich is introduced in the movie not through the eyes, but also as just a regular character. And he begins a love affair with Maxine, who then begins to fall in love with Lottie, but only while she is inside the portal of Malkovich's mind. If this movie sounds confusing and bizarre, that's because it is. But in a way, it's super original because there's a lot of philosophical themes to it that go with it. I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed this on a, I guess you could say it a rewatch, but more just watching it from beginning to end. I know that I think the previous times that I watched it, it kind of loses me when the Malkovich character shows up. I like the idea of like these people inside his head and like what are they discovering, and then I always kind of got lost in it. But if you watch it, there's some philosophical stuff that comes with it that I hadn't really discovered. Cameron Diaz is great in this movie, and I think her awards nominations were deserved. Cool. She's not really a housewife because she has a job, but she's like just a homely, pet-obsessed woman who then becomes obsessed with Malkovich's portal. And like I said, she will do anything within her power to recreate that experience of being in John Malkovich's mind for that 15-minute time slot. That's really my review, and I think that, like I said, I think her performance was good. All the actors are good in this. It's very, very weird, but if you can stomach the weirdness and come out sort of with the message of the movie, I think you'll find it enjoyable.
Yeah, I was struck by how unique Cameron looks comparatively to what you normally see her in her roles. So the blonde hair, like very beautiful, like the eye candy part is usually, and you get none of that. And I even read that when they transformed her into her setup, like people thought she was just like a rando walking around on set. They didn't know it was Cameron Diaz.
If you haven't seen this, she's got like frizzy brown hair. She wears like overalls, like ugly sweaters. Like it does not play she's couldn't be further away from the girl that everyone lusts over in There's Something About Mary almost a year later. So
I just think this movie's brilliant. I was not expecting a movie like this from this situation. Mm-hmm. So to have one like that kind of blew me away. I love Spike Jonze. I think Her is one of the best movies I might have ever seen. I think it's just astonishingly brilliant. The way he kind of can attach themes to something so wildly innovative and like outside of the norm is captivating to me. So I was in on this almost immediately as soon as Octavia Spencer opened up the elevator with the crowbar.
The 7.5. With Mark still on it. So it made it clear this was not the first time.
Yeah. And you could see the woman walking on floor 8. I was like, okay, I'm here for this. Wherever we go from here, I'm here for this. What I love is it's not just bizarre for bizarre's sake.
Yes.
Because there's plenty of weird movies that I've had people try to tell me like, no, there's something really thoughtful here. And I'm like, no, there's not. This is just weird to be weird, which, to each their own. Mm-hmm. This is weird with a purpose. He attaches so many deep themes. This movie's about identity. It's about gender. It's about sexuality. It's about like the angst and aimlessness of being in your 30s and kind of feeling like you're lost.
Everyday life, yeah.
It's, what's real, what's consciousness, what makes me. Like all of these things are packed into this just world that makes no sense when you say it out loud. I'm completely taken with this movie. I watched it this morning and I have not stopped thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a good one. Go Go check it out. It's not streaming. I don't know how you guys watch it. It's not streaming anywhere. I rented it on iTunes, but yeah, go check it out.
I paid $4 on Prime to rent it, but it was worth it. I think it was well worth it.
It was.
When I read the like plot synopsis on like Amazon Prime, and they described the three main characters that like start the movie, so Cusack, Keener, and Cameron Diaz. I thought that Diaz and Keener would have their roles switched because they described who they were, but like not where the story was going, of course. And then when it starts and I see how Diaz is dressed, I was like, whoa, I did not see that coming. And I was very impressed by both of them in their roles. I thought Keener crushed it as well.
Cameron Diaz is really good. She does a lot with that character
Mm-hmm.
because she's given a lot to do, which I mean, it's probably the most she's had up to do to this point, and probably ever. She's had to kind of play with.
Yep.
And so she's kind of breaking a stigma of being just a wife in a movie like this. And then she's dealing with all of these other really deep, like philosophical ideas and themes that are packed inside these characters. She is really good in this.
Mm-hmm. So 99 is when she started dating Jared Leto. Dated him for 4 years. So she's got like the number of people she went through that landed on the Good Charlotte Singer is really interesting to me when you start to look at things. But
She did that Spike Jonze movie. She was in a weird space.
you find love and a hope wherever in weird places.
Yeah, she dodged a bullet with Jared Leto. That dude's weird as hell.
Yeah, that's true. But 99, she's in Any Given Sunday as Christina.
How do you guys feel about her performance in this?
I really liked
I liked it too.
but I liked the whole movie. I thought she was really good at the irrational owner.
Yeah.
She's like the antagonist in this movie.
Yeah.
She contrasts really well with Pacino, who's like the cranky old coach. She's like the owner in Major League who wants to move the team for selfish reasons, not for a better fan base. But
It's an odd role to see a young woman play like a slimy, cutthroat executive sports team owner. And she does it well where like you could tell like she's in this for herself and complete type A personality, and I've just never seen anything like it before, and so I think maybe that's why I was so impressed about it, because it's a kind of a character I haven't seen before.
Hear from Aubrey since he proposed the question.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
I've talked to a couple of my friends about this one. I love the performance, and some of them didn't so much. And one of my friends was like, "Yeah, she's just there because she's pretty." And so I watched this movie. I've seen this movie several times. I don't like the movie as much anymore. I think the movie is a bit of a mess. I think kind of Oliver Stone just gets lost in himself. Just he's got too many things he wants to say. There's an eyeball on the field. It's a lot. I think she goes a long way to making this movie work, though.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because everyone in this movie is over the top. And she is able to get to a place where she can match them, but not go too far.
Yep.
Because her character has to be grounded, because that character has to be real, because you don't see that character very often.
Yeah.
She was way ahead of her time with that role.
Especially not 99.
She carries it well. Like, she feels like the person who is the most important in this movie. I am the one in charge. She feels that way.
Yes.
Anytime she's on screen, I think she's tremendous. And she's going across, like, she's acting head on with Al Pacino.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx, James Woods.
Great.
Ooh,
Like, she's going after it with like really great actors. Like, this to me is a great role for her.
Aubrey, to your point, one thing that impressed me about her role in this movie, when she's on, the mood changes. Mm-hmm. When she's the center of a scene, the mood changes. And then it goes back to this wild and over the top, like you talked about, kind of caricature of football and sport culture. And then when it comes back to her, the mood just changes to this very serious, very real subplot.
She feels the most real in the whole thing.
The Millennium hits 2000. I just really wanted to get to the Millennium.
I know.
Case new. Cameron was in a movie called Things You Can Tell by Looking at Her, alongside Holly Hunter as a character named Carol. Has anybody else seen this movie?
No.
Nope.
She plays a blind character in this movie, which is very different. It's very interesting. Completely different character from anything I've seen.
How did she do?
Fine. It wasn't a bastardization of a blind character.
Okay.
From what I saw. But same year is Largest Critic App, and that is Charlie's Angels, a movie that we talked about briefly on the Sam Rockwell episode, because Sam Rockwell plays the baddie in that one. It is my review, and I'm not going to get into plot too much of Charlie's Angels, because if you're listening and you don't understand the concept of Charlie's Angels, we need to have a different conversation, because pop culture wise, everybody knows about Charlie's Angels, right? Charlie's Angels, Bosley. I'd rather talk about some of the more interesting things around the production of the film that I didn't know going into this.
Yeah, I'm interested in this.
So the split is not huge. Critic app, 69 on the critic side and 45 on the audience side. So it's only 24. There weren't a lot of critic app options because Cameron Diaz isn't in a lot of movies that are critically adored. She's in a lot of movies that are more so critically panned. 52 Metascore. So what I learned about researching this movie is that it was driven largely by Drew Barrymore. She purchased the rights to Charlie's Angels, and then she made like 120 million combined with the two Charlie's Angels films, this one and then Full Throttle, which came out a couple years later. I don't know how much she spent, but she did. It was a wise investment on her part to buy the film, right?
Sounds like she did pretty good on that investment.
Yeah. What I thought was hilarious is I compared this movie to MacGruber in a lot of ways because the Angels kick ass without guns like MacGruber does. So I thought that was hilarious. And I forgot how this movie was parodied in Scary Movie 2. Because to our conversation earlier, Aubrey, with part of the charm and the corniness of Charlie's Angels are these high wire, like flipped fight scenes and stuff. And they had Cameron Diaz is literally the first one in the movie that does one of those where she travels to the air, basically like a Liu Kang kick through the air type of thing where it kind of arcs. And that's what they made fun of in Scary Movie 2. When Chris Elliott like absolutely wipes their floor.
That's one of my favorite scenes in Scary Movie 2. When he's waiting for him to. That's so funny.
She's like, ah! But this is the really interesting part about Cameron Diaz, because like Cameron Diaz was hired for a very specific job in this role, and that was to be eye candy. There's a lot of male gaze stuff going on in this movie for just her, and to say like corny lines and participate in some corny fight scenes, right? Like that's the start and end of Cameron Diaz and Charlie's Angels. But what was interesting was, one, all of the casting decisions that went into this, right? Like Drew Barrymore, she was going to be in there from the start. Mm-hmm. Cameron Diaz didn't have a ton of competition, but Lucy Liu's character, there's like a list of like 20 actresses or so that were considered.
Really?
Yeah, it's huge. All right, I'm going to tell you how much money Lucy Liu made, and then you guys get to try to guess how much money Cameron Diaz made for her role. Remember, equal screen time for the most part. Lucy Liu made $1 million for her role. How much do you think Cameron Diaz made, if I haven't told you already?
I'm going 10.
I know the answer from this from looking up research. And
she made $12 million.
Wow.
She made 12 times as much money as Lucy Liu. Drew Barrymore, I think, made $8 million. Or 9. She made 9. That just goes to show how big she was. Like, they had to pay her $12 million to take on this role in Charlie's Angels.
Yeah.
And she did it a couple times. This movie had 18 writers. 18 writers. And it went through like 30 rewrites of the script.
I think they make fun of that in Full Throttle.
As they should. I hope they did. Stacked cast: Bill Murray, a creepy Crispin Glover who likes to sniff women's hair, Tim Curry, Luke Wilson, Tom Green, who was dating Drew Barrymore at the time, Alex Trebek makes an appearance, Matt LeBlanc, Melissa McCarthy, small role, and Sam Rockwell as Eric Knox doing his best dancing badass impression. Yeah, so just kind of a wacky production that went into this movie.
I remember two things from this movie. One was that they called Crispin Glover the creepy thin man, and I couldn't wrap my head around how thin he was. I was like, he looks like a normal skinny guy, but then you'd like see him like fit between like doorways and stuff. And couldn't get over that. And then I remember how stunningly beautiful Cameron Diaz was. And that's, I don't remember the plot.
What plot?
Those are the only still frames in my mind I have.
Do you remember her dancing at the club?
100%.
And that awkward ass scene with Soul Train?
Okay, so first of all, that's offensive. We need to talk about this. That is wild. That is not how that would go. I feel like
No, not at all.
it needs to be established. That is not how that would go. I like this movie though. I think it's a good time. To me, it's fun. I was shocked at how like sexual it all was because I saw this movie when I was young, and it was like kind of shocking to see that now because they all seem to lean into it. But to me, this one was a good time. It was able to capture the balance of like being in on the joke while like trying to be kind of silly and funny. Like it worked for me for the most part.
You were talking about how, massive her appeal was at this time. She's top billed in this movie. I forgot to mention with Any Given Sunday, she was second billed in that movie with that crazy cast. And again, with this amazing cast you're talking about, she's first billed.
She's 6 years into her career at this point.
Wow.
Good reminder. We hadn't even hit.
Holy cow.
I would hope if she makes $12 million, she'd be first bill.
Yeah.
Solid for her and Jared Leto at that moment. Leto's like, sugar mama, let's go.
Yeah, for real.
I would have guessed at the time that Drew Barrymore would have been a bigger star, though. If you would have just asked me, like, who was a bigger star in 2000, I would have said Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, first project after Charlie's Angels was the entry into the Shrek world as Princess Fiona in 2001.
Ever heard of?
Yeah.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but her character gets even more prominent
Yeah.
as the movies go along.
The first two, actually good. And they deserve the hype that they get. There's anime. I feel like this was like early entry in the game to put like adult humor in a kid's movie that would like go over a kid's head. So like the parents that are in the theater could enjoy it as well as the kids could enjoy it. But still, you know, it's about fairy tales, and so it's a child's movie, but you enjoy it even watching it at an older age. The third one is terrible.
Yeah.
It is it's almost unwatchable. But the first two are, and I think they made a fourth one.
Fourth one is almost unwatchable.
All right, fair. The first two, they were in their sweet spot. Like the jokes still play. It's all just playing like jokes and puns off of classic fairy tales and like Disney stories.
Yeah, the little gingerbread guy. It's hilarious.
Best character.
Yeah.
Gingerman Man is the best character. Love him.
That interaction is still funny when he's getting interrogated and tortured by John Lithgow. And he's trying to explain where the woman lives. And he's like, she's married to the Muffin Man. And he's like, the Muffin Man? He's like, the Muffin Man! The Muffin Man!
Yeah, I forget. Good call. I forget Lithgow is a pretty main character as Lord Farquhar in these
He
movies.
spits in his face.
The movies alone, world grossed at just under $3 billion.
We were way off.
$750 million for average.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
My takeaway from this in terms of her was like how I felt like the animated version of this and her voice acting kind of stripped her of what is so entertaining about her. Her voice work is fine, but it's not like dynamic.
No.
She's kind of just doing a part. And ultimately she's kind of forgettable. And to me, her character is kind of that too. Because like Cameron Diaz is entertaining and engaging and captivating as a performer. It's not really her voice. And so like watching this again, I never thought about her character before. I never really thought that it was Cameron Diaz. I didn't think about it. And then leaving these 4 movies, I had the same feeling. I was like, that could have literally been anybody.
Well, it's 2 episodes in a row where our performer is in one of the bigger animated projects of all time, and I never really associate them with it.
Yeah.
With Broderick as Simba, like because he didn't sing the songs.
That's a good point.
2 franchises that ballooned their box office metrics. Think about Justin Timberlake and Forever After, but not for good reasons. Because it's awful. I'm
I sat down to watch all 4.
impressed and depressed for you.
Well, my son watches movies with us. So like he's 2, but he'll sit and watch a whole movie.
Perfect.
And so like these were like really the only ones I could put on when he was awake.
Right. How did your son feel about being John Malkovich?
What about any given Sunday?
Yeah, right.
Speaking of existential dread, Vanilla Sky, the last movie I watched of Cameron Diaz's that I had never seen before, and I definitely thought was a like romance movie and not a movie about cryogenics and lots of things that I had no idea that was going to happen between Tom Cruise, Penelope Cruz, and Cameron Diaz.
She's basically the Ben Stiller in There's Something About Mary in this movie. Like, what are you, a stalker?
Well, she's actually a stalker. Just it's not funny.
She's a clingy stalker, and it's not funny.
Yeah, it's very scary. Like you, Kyle, I had not seen this movie. All I knew of it was the Kanye lyric about he looked like Tom Cruise in Vanilla Sky. So I knew there was a car accident at some point coming. And I was pleasantly surprised by Diaz's portrayal of like a psychopath.
Yeah.
Like just like a crazy stalker kind of chick. I thought she did great in that role.
I do too. I thought she was really good.
She got Golden Globes, SAG, and Critic Choice noms for this too. So this her other big awards movie.
Yeah, I will say the movie's not very good. It tries a little too hard on the existential sort of themes where you're like, you could watch it 100 times and still not really know the point behind it. But yeah, I thought her performance for what they wanted, just like an obsessed ex-girlfriend who tries to kill Tom Cruise was good.
Is this movie worth a watch? Because I didn't have time to get to it, but I want to see it.
I think it is. It's weird,
It's very weird.
but
I wouldn't say it's bad.
I would use this word that Warren hates. It's ambitious.
Yeah.
It's very ambitious.
It tries way too hard.
It's not bad. I won't go as far as saying it's good, but it's definitely not bad.
Like a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
A year later, uncredited role as a bus passenger in Minority Report, and also appeared alongside Christina Applegate in The Sweetest Thing, a movie we talked about in the Applegate episode. Fun,
Very enjoyable.
lighthearted.
Very raunchy.
She plays like a serial, I don't know what the word is. She's just like a stiff arm. She stiff arms all the guys. She's not a very vulnerable person, doesn't want her heart broken. So she basically just tells guys off all the time.
Oh, I just think it's fun. She goes a long way in making this movie work just off of charisma alone. Because the movie's weird. Like, there's musical numbers in it. She's dancing for reasons that don't make any sense.
Right.
Like, there's just a bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense.
The third girl is what, Selma Blair? Is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
The Selma Blair scene at the dry cleaner is my favorite scene in the movie.
That's what I was going to reference.
And it's the most absurd. It's
Yeah.
like she's trying to get cum out of her dress.
If I know what it is, I can clean it better.
And she doesn't want to say. She's like, I don't know. Yeah,
And I spilled a drink on it.
Her pastor walks in, like a whole Girl Scout troop walks in. Like it's everyone she knows from her town.
Gangs of New York, 02, got a Golden Globe nom for her role as Jenny.
Taking a dive into the Scorsese world. I'm not the biggest fan of this movie.
Same.
And I love Scorsese. He's like one of my favorite directors. But I don't know. This movie always just kind of lost me. Like, just never was a fan of it. And her role, I think, is kind of forgettable, to be honest with you, in this.
Yeah.
For being with that cast, Daniel Day-Lewis. The fact that Daniel Day-Lewis, Leo, and Liam Neeson, those three together, like, it's no wonder that her role is kind of forgotten about, I feel like.
Her character is there to drive the plot, which is like just further.
Yes.
It's going to be you versus me, no matter what. We're involved with the same woman. Killed my dad. It just drives further their hate for one another.
I love this movie.
I'm a big fan. I like it better than they do.
I mean, I don't have much defenses in terms of, like, I'm not going to try to convert anybody, but the thing I like about the movie has nothing to do with Cameron Diaz because I don't think she ever really stood a chance. One of my friends loved this movie, and he told me, he was like, when you watch this movie, you're not going to walk away thinking about her. There's just no way that you could.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I really like that this movie does is Scorsese just drops in these little history parallels to what's going on. So all the stuff that's happening with the draft and conscription and the war, I found to be really fascinating, and how that's just kind of happening in the background.
Yeah,
and how he kind of sprinkles it in throughout. I thought that part of it in particular was brilliant, and Daniel Day-Lewis is a god. So
he's unbelievable.
Stuff all day.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like the acting, actually, from all of them. I like the acting from all of them, and I don't know. It just never had that final emotional punch for me. I don't know why.
Same here.
And I thought all of that.
I see it. It drags in the second act too.
Yeah, that could be it.
I get it for sure.
Reprises her role in Charlie's Angels Full Throttle in 03, meets JT, Justin Timberlake, at the Kids' Choice Awards, which leads to an eventual relationship between the two. Her dating history is very high profile. A lot of big names. Shrek 2 in 04, so this is the season of reprisals. And then in 05, she plays a role as Maggie in Inner Shoes, alongside Toni Collette, which is a really interesting film. And again, a rare dramatic role from Cameron Diaz as the sister who just can't quite get it together.
She's like a party girl in this, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Toni Collette's like the serious one who's like trying to like get her to vote. Yeah.
Yeah, she's against her better interests, like continue to try to help her sister, and then at one point catches Cameron Diaz sleeping with her like boyfriend at the time in the house, and it's just like back and forth between the two. And if you're interested in their careers, I think it's a good one to watch, especially Toni Collette, because she's just such a quality actress.
She's awesome. Mm-hmm.
Really good. So it's on Stars. You can check it out. As Ellie said at the time of recording, it's on Stars. And then we have the largest audience gap, which is 2006's The Holiday, and James has it.
So I'll preface this with saying when I was assigned The Holiday for this podcast, I was already firmly on the audience side. I was like, oh, sweet, great. I didn't realize how poorly this did with the critics. So 49% critic approval, 80% audience approval. And I was actually shocked when I saw how large of a gap that is. the synopsis of this is the cast is great. So two women who are played by Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet. They both kind of find themselves at the end of like failed relationships right before Christmas. This movie's 100% a Christmas movie. Mm-hmm. Diaz decides to take like a 2-week vacation, start surfing the web, meets Winslet online. It's kind of awkward because it's early internet stuff. So it's like they're in a chat room for single women who aren't looking for women or something like that. And then they agree in explaining their failed love lives to switch homes, like Airbnb style, for a few weeks. And so Diaz goes to live in England where Winslet lives on the countryside. And Winslet comes to live in Diaz's like LA swanky, super rich, I think she's like a movie producer's house. Both of them kind of end up meeting love. Winslet's brother is played by Jude Law, who tries to drop by his sister's house and falls for Cameron Diaz. And the plot is a little predictable because then Winslet's on the other side of the world and meets a young composer by the name of Jack Black, and she falls for him. And while this movie's like, no, not Oscar worthy, I found it heartwarming, light, it's fun. I think all the actors involved are funny. I think Cameron Diaz's sweet spot is being funny. I don't know if it's necessarily in a romantic comedy, but she does hold her own here, and I just think that is a natural skill that she has. But it's like the kind of film that just kind of brings you up, when you're feeling down. It's light, story's light, you don't have to be overly involved. And one of the things that was like the biggest positive shock for me was when I found out that it was the original score is composed by Hans Zimmer, who's like one of the goats. And so it was like just this feel good score throughout the whole thing. Enjoyable movie for me. I very much roll on the side of the audience here.
I thought the concept was kind of interesting and unique. It's not really my style of movie. Mm-hmm. It's not really my kind of story I would go out of my way to watch. But I could see why people who really like this genre would really enjoy this movie because there's good actors. I think they put in good performances, and I think by the time the movie ends, the lessons that you learn are reasonable.
Yeah. I
think they're good lessons of like, hey, we're going to enjoy our time while we're together, but it's probably not practical for us. I'm not going to stay living in London forever, right? I'll spend New Year's with you. Type of deal. And I thought that was nice.
Like, it's a perfect watch. You can put it on anytime, even though it is very much a Christmas movie. Like I watched it like the last night or 2 nights ago. It's a perfect movie to watch anytime. It feels good. It's pretty simple. Kate Winslet's the best. It's a movie basically just a star power. Mm-hmm. Like, go be charismatic and interesting. And the 4 main people can do that really easily.
Shrek the Third, 2007. What Happens in Vegas in 2008 played Joy alongside Ashton Kutcher, I believe.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I think people were ready to dunk on this movie when it came out, and so it got terrible reviews. But I watched it. It's not great, but it's not bad.
I like her character in this. It's What Happens in Vegas, but the movie takes place mainly in New York, which is kind of bizarre. But
yeah,
it's about her. Yeah, it's about her and Ashton Kutcher. They have a one night stand and end up getting married in Vegas.
Next year, My Sister's Keeper played Sarah, and then was acting alongside our boy James Marsden in 2009's The Box, a movie we did a full review on way back, and I think like episode 9, I think is what Marsden's episode was.
This was the one where it was based off a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
It worked. Yeah. It worked better as a half-hour episode as compared to an hour-and-a-half long movie.
Like a great Twilight Zone episode.
Oh yeah, it's an okay movie, but she plays the wife of James Marsden, and Frank Langella plays the guy who's operating and running the box.
Is she the one who pushes, says they should push it, or is it Marsden? I don't remember.
It's her. I'm pretty sure
it's her. Yeah, she's aggressive on that. He doesn't really want to, if I remember correctly. Same year, did 3 episodes of Sesame Street. Seems like kind of a big deal. I mean, she's doing all the Shrek movies, so it would make sense to go to Sesame Street, right? You're in front of kids, might as well go over to one of the more successful shows of all time. Then Shrek Forever After in 2010. And then in 2010 is when Forbes ranked her as the richest female celebrity, which is kind of gives you the span after 4 Shrek movies, how much money she had.
I think she reached that 20 mil plateau. I don't know if we covered it. We might have just skipped over it, but it was the second Charlie's Angels movie.
Oh, in Full Throttle? Yeah, in 2003.
Yeah, Full Throttle. So she probably, I didn't look into, the negotiation tactics that got there, but it could have been one of those things where it was like, well, you paid me $12 million last movie and I didn't want to be in that one. So I don't want to be in this one. Make me the second actress ever to be paid 20, and she got it.
Double or nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm in.
He saw the script of that movie and said, give me $20 million. That's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Damn.
And I like the first Charlie's Angels. That Full Throttle movie is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Oh,
High praise from Aubrey here.
that stinks. Well, I mean, there you go. It's if the money's right, I don't even need to read the script. I'll be there.
Well, and key word here too is celebrity. I didn't say actress. I said celebrity. So it's a wide swath of entertainment, right? It's outside of just people who are on screen. So we're talking athletes, all sorts of things. So she's on as of 2010. She's about as financially comfortable as one can get.
Good for her.
Yep, no kidding, right?
I believe this is right around the time that she gave, in my opinion, her best performance, and that was feeding Alex Rodriguez popcorn at the Dallas Cowboys game.
No, I mean, it is a thing. When I found out that she was married to Benji from Good Charlotte, and then I found out they were married in like 2015, I was like, oh my God, did she like cheat on him with A-Rod? Because I remember her dating A-Rod, and I didn't realize it was like a good 6 years prior to even like meeting him. But because of how long her and A-Rod have been in my life, I knew that of that corny ass fucking part where they were caught at the Super Bowl.
So I was wrong. This was 2011. So I'm a little early on that.
Yeah.
So.
Her entire dating life has been like her character, and There's Something About Mary.
Yeah.
It's just all these dudes vying for her adoration. 2010, she's a night and day. This character named June.
This was the movie that I referenced earlier. Anybody I've ever watched this with was like, I don't want to watch that. And then I'll make them watch it. And by the end, they're like, that's a pretty entertaining movie.
Night and day is fun.
So much fun.
Pretty funny. It's pretty funny.
So much fun.
I love the scene where they're being held captive and Tom Cruise is like swinging from the ceiling and he's like, we're going to get out of this. I promise you.
He's hilarious in this movie.
Yeah,
Hilarious.
he
He
is.
is so funny. He's basically making fun of himself.
Yep.
Which is a funny thing. Like to see him just make fun of this archetype character that he plays all the time. He's just making fun of it.
The Mission Impossible movies. Yep.
And she's kind of making fun of that character also. It's a great movie. I enjoyed every time I watch it.
Yeah, I loved it.
And then, I mean, talk about cast. You got Gal Gadot, Viola Davis, Peter Sarsgaard. The Green Hornet, 2011, entered into the superhero realm. Was the Green Hornet received well?
No.
Seth Rogen, right?
I think it wasn't received well because of Seth Rogen. Yeah, I mean, I think this movie was doomed from the beginning.
Any superhero movie that doesn't come out in the summertime or Christmas is usually going to suck. If it comes out in like,
That's a good point.
if it comes out in the spring or like February, then it usually blows.
Okay, so I know why you like it. Her last name in the movie. It's Case.
Is it really?
It's Lenore Case.
There you go.
So I thought she was pretty damn good in Bad Teacher. I think she did that role very well. I don't know if the movie's great, but
Yeah,
I think she plays an asshole teacher pretty well.
completely agree. I thought her performance in this is hilarious. It's a funny movie. It's super vulgar and super just like ridiculous, but I loved her in this.
Mm-hmm.
Another one where the morals are a bit weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
People that we hate are just like legitimately, they seem like good people that are doing the right thing. And we want bad things to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
So this terrible person can keep being terrible.
Yeah, to give us your perspective as a teacher, Aubrey, like what are your official review of Bad Teacher?
I try not to do this because there's a lot of movies that take place in school. So I try not to be the guy that's like, that doesn't happen. That's not how that works. However, there are things in this movie that are wildly inaccurate, but the teacher putting movies on all the time is a thing that happens quite a bit.
She has him watching some decent films.
For real. So that part I respect. The kid also having the kid that will give you like baked goods is a thing
Yeah.
that I personally appreciate. But this is another movie that shouldn't work, but does.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible.
Yep.
But I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
Just because she's good in it.
Bad Teacher? Oh, yeah, 100%.
Was Cameron Diaz still dating Justin Timberlake when this was going on?
No, they had broken up well before that.
Drama.
Which is funny because they are good. They're good together in the movie. So that was pretty well done on their part.
Yeah, I think it'd been a couple years. So another movie that I liked personally was What to Expect When You're Expecting. She played Jules, a movie with Chris Rock. Chris Rock's little like posse of dads is fucking hilarious in that movie. And I felt like the portrayal, especially from Elizabeth Banks's character, of like how terrible motherhood is on the back end, was extremely realistic and refreshing. So I found What to Expect When You're Expecting a really fun watch.
This is another one like Bad Teacher, like Sweetest Thing. I didn't think it was going to be good. It probably really shouldn't be that good. And I had a good time with it and would watch it again anytime.
Mm-hmm.
The Chris Rock stuff is obviously great. It felt like they were just like, hey, Chris Rock is here. Hey, do a thing.
Yep.
You're a dad. Do a thing. And he killed it.
Him, Thomas Lennon, that whole crew was fucking entertaining.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it took all these archetypes around pregnancy. So it took the one with Anna Kendrick and this guy that she had barely met. Like, she knew from high school. They hooked up, got pregnant, had a miscarriage. I was like, miscarriages happen wildly often, right? And so, like,
I thought that was really compelling.
mm-hmm.
That was a really.
I was like, for two people that aren't married, they have a miscarriage, and then what do you do now? Like, do we date? Like, we didn't really go on dates before, and I felt that was like, those are the type of stories I think need to be told because it's real life.
Yeah.
And then she became an author in 2013. She became the highest paid actress over the age of 40, and then she wrote her first book, The Body Book, and which was the number 2 bestseller on the New York Times list. Just pretty cool. Case, I know, loves himself a good actor off.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool.
Then our last review is lowest critic score, and that is 2014 Sex Tape. And Case has it.
Well, spoiler, I'm really glad that she didn't retire on this movie. So she's got another movie coming up before she retires. But Sex Tape is a 2014 comedy starring Cameron Diaz and Jason Segel and is directed by Jake Kasdan. The trio are following up their project with A Bad Teacher together, as we discussed from 2011. Sex Tape was generally received pretty poorly from critics and fans. Most reviewers, both critic and fan, cited either poor performances, poor writing, or a boring, tired plot. You know, after watching it, I'd say the performances were fine by both the stars and the very funny supporting cast. And the supporting cast members include Rob Corddry, Ellie Kemper, and Rob Lowe. I just don't think the writing was great in this movie. Here's the gist of the movie. Diaz and Segel are married. They end up having a family. Sex life goes down. And in order to spice up their sex life, they decide that they're going to try to make a home sex tape, as the title of the movie would describe. Problem is, Segel records their session, if you will, on his MacBook, which then puts it onto his Apple Cloud, which then delivers it to every single iPad that he has attached to his account. Not a huge deal until they realize that he's been giving away iPads to people over the years, and several people have now what would be their sex tape, including her mother, her boss, and their neighbor, Rob Corddry. He's thinking, okay, it's okay. And then all of a sudden they get a threatening text basically going, look, I got your sex tape. So then they start going around and they try to find, who's got it. And ultimately, spoiler alert, fast forward, if you're worried about the plot of this movie, it turns out Rob Corddry's son had the iPad and then threatened them to release it unless he gives them a massive amount of money, which that I won't spoil. And then the rest of the movie just kind of goes on through that. I actually watched this when it first came out. When I read the synopsis and everything early, it seemed like what would have been a really funny comedy. However, I think the movie was written for mass appeal. We've talked a lot about the difference between PG and R-rated movies. PG movies make so much more money. This isn't PG, but I think they wanted this to have a little wider appeal. And I think had the movie been made several years earlier, before a lot of raunchier comedies had been made, and this concept of sex tapes and accidentally leaking videos and photos and stuff, it's kind of a played out theme in real life anyways. I mean, either way, the movie's fine.
What's the critic score?
The critic score on this is 16%. Audience is 33%.
Wow. I remember when this came out. I don't remember it being that panned, but interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of put it in that same group of movies I was talking about earlier with Bad Teacher and The Sweetest Thing and The Other Woman. These are movies that probably shouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And they were good. They were fine. I enjoyed watching it. It's good in the same ways. Like, I found her to be really compelling in this movie. She was dealing with a lot of like really interesting things. This movie could have been really good and smart if they had people that wanted it to go that way. Because she was dealing with some complex things. It's fine. It's a good time.
We talk about The Other Woman. Did this come out before or after that?
After. No, we didn't talk about the other one.
I actually know a friend of mine who this, not exact thing, but this happened to them where their cell phone was linked to their iPad and their computer. And on a bachelor party, it led to the end of their relationship.
James, I asked you to keep that fucking secret. This is not time.
Obviously, I won't name him, but when your buddy comes in and explains that to you and everyone just like collectively is like, well, yeah, man, I guess you make your bed, you got to sleep in it at this point, bro. Like, good luck when you get home, dude. That's going to be tough, man.
Okay, to round it out, last couple of years here, she hosted SNL in 2014, and her final movie up until this point, maybe she'll return at some point when she gets restless or the kids get a little bit older, was in Annie in 2014. She played Miss Hannigan, a role that I read that she found to be pretty challenging for her, and maybe that she's like, yeah, I've done it, I'm good. And then she officially retired in 2014. She basically said, like, she'd always put off her personal life up to this point. She wanted to have kids, like, got married, wanted to do the kids thing, kind of had lost control of a lot of those things. And so it was one of those, she didn't outright say it, like, I've made a lot of money, I don't need to make more money, but I just want to do my own thing.
Raise a family, I want to do my own thing, yeah. Totally understandable.
Married Benji Madden through a connection with Nicole Richie, because Benji's got a twin brother, and still married. I think they have at least one kid. I don't know.
Yeah, they have one. I think they have a daughter.
And they had their child Radix through a surrogate, too. So she had to bring in some outside help as well.
If you look at all the main actors from the Shrek series, they all took a hiatus after that. Like, I don't know if Mike Myers has been in anything other than like a cameo here or there, like in Inglourious Bastards. But like Eddie Murphy didn't come back until recently. So that was like a good 10-year, like, kind of pause, because you're making that much money. It's like, I could just hang out with, my husband or hang out with my kids. Like, who cares,
Yep. Just do family stuff, man.
Yeah.
And I guess during that time, 2016, she wrote her second book, the longevity book. And then she did things like investing in health and biotech startups. So just got interested in some other stuff right outside of act. Now she's got the time to do it.
Really savvy businesswoman.
Yeah.
Like, she showed that early with the career decisions she made. She clearly understood her level of fame and how that worked. And, she just seems like a really savvy business.
She acted from 94 to 2014, so 20 years. She had a 20-year run on screen and made more money than any actress had in her 40s. So I'd say she did pretty well for someone calling it quits.
But I think it says something that she hasn't acted in this long, and she's still like a really big household name.
Yeah.
If you saw her on the street, you would know that's Cameron Diaz.
Yep. All right, let's move to top performances. Rigby, what do you got for us?
All right, I got a list from Variety. It was released in 2021. Top 10 performances of Cameron Diaz's career. Who wants to start us off?
Number 1, Gimme being John Malkovich.
That's number 3.
Son of a bitch.
My Best Friend's Wedding.
That is number 8.
Okay.
Any Given Sunday.
That is not on here.
Oh,
Whoa.
there's something about Mary.
That's numero uno.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep, me too.
What about Gangs of New York, I guess?
No, surprisingly, that's not on here.
I'm not surprised by that.
All those award noms and didn't get it. Shrek has to be on there. Number 2.
Yep, Shrek is number 9.
Oh.
The Holiday.
The Holiday is not on here.
Vanilla Sky.
Vanilla Sky is number 2, which I appreciate because I think she's really good in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
Smaller role, but very impactful.
Very impactful.
Give me Bad Teacher.
Nope.
Oh, balls.
The Sweetest Thing.
Sweetest Thing is number 6.
Good call.
In Her Shoes.
Number 10.
There you go.
What about The Other Woman?
Nope. We need 7, 5, and 4.
Night and Day.
Nope.
Damn. We suck again.
She's the one?
Nope.
Oh, dude.
Did we talk about that? I like that movie a lot.
Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels, yep. Did we talk about She's the One? I like that movie.
No, we didn't.
So Charlie's Angels number 4. We need 7 and 5.
Things you can tell by looking at her.
Nope.
Annie?
Nope.
I got nothing, man.
The Mask?
The Mask is number 5.
Feeling Minnesota.
Nope. Number 7, I don't think we mentioned it.
Just tell us the last 2.
It's The Counselor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a more recent one. I put it on for a second, then I took it off because I've read that it was a pretty good dramatic role on her part.
I think that's a Ridley Scott movie with Michael Fassbender. Great cast.
Yeah.
But I remember it being panned at the box office, like in the 20s.
Yep.
That surprises me that's on this list because that's a 34-23 fan and critic ranking.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the top 3? Remind us again. Remind the audience.
Number 1, There's Something About Mary. Number 2, Vanilla Sky. And number 3, John Malkovich.
So interesting. A Farrelly Brothers movie and then 2, unlike a lot of the romantic comedy films that she did.
Mm-hmm.
Which it makes sense to me.
It's impressive to me that she didn't become the rom-com go-to.
I agree.
That's impressive.
All right, let's get into the Munson Meter then. Let's round this thing out. The way this works, we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors. Those factors could include longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, their acting range, awards footprint, any other talents they might have, their personal life, their comedic chops, box office success or lack thereof, and anything else that matters to us as Munsons. So we will start with Rigby this time.
So Cameron Diaz, like I said, household name, shot to stardom with There's Something About Mary, and I think has kind of stayed there ever since, even though she retired 7 years ago and gave up acting to do her own business thing and obviously be with her family. The fact that she was at one time the highest paid actress and female celebrity, I think says something about her. She basically conquered the game in a way that maybe aside from winning like an Oscar, she's basically done it all. And, you know, I think her resume speaks for itself in the sense that she's worked with powerful directors like Scorsese, Cameron Crowe, but also notable directors like the Farrelly brothers. And I know I'm forgetting some, but yeah, she is what you think of when you think of a movie star. And she still is, even though she's been out of the game for a while. So, and she, like I said, she is the main character in one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. She's going to get a high score from me. She's going to get an 83.
Reviewing her is tough. I almost wish I was on the back end of this because I've reserved the right to change my score after I hear everybody else's comments and thoughts.
Boo.
So I'm gonna give her credit. She's been nominated for a bunch of roles, but she's never won any of them. So I take that into account for the awards side. Knowing a lot of her roles just aren't like awards worthy ones, but the ones she did take on that would appeal to the Academy or to SAG or to the Globes, she did get nominated for. So I give her credit there. Her role in Shrek catapulting her career, and I just look at the numbers, the box office side for me from Craig is so interesting on this one because that stat about only 2 of her 34 movies lost money, that blew me away.
Yeah.
Because I think we could compare that number. And yes, her overall, she's like 30 whatever of 54, 32 of 54. So she's in the latter half. But when I look at just a box office vehicle, and yeah, movies aren't all about what makes money, but it's part of how we evaluate our performers. So I'll put that out there. And just the fact of like, yeah, she's done some really cool, interesting things. So I mentioned the startup tech stuff she did, but she's also involved in Iran and Afghanistan veterans organizations. So I respect that about her, and she's using her time pretty wisely. I respect that she's a lead in pretty much almost everything she's been in, and the amount of what she accomplished in only 20 years. I mean, we've been covering actors that have been doing this stuff for 40 years and still don't have that same level of prestige when it comes to name recognition. They might have awards and some other types of things, but not competing with her there. But it's so hard to judge her because she retired early. And so, you know, there could have been so many more cool things the last 7 years. And how do you rate that for a longevity standpoint? You know, this is uncharted waters. So I'm not going to go as high as Rigby, but I'm going to give her a 70. I feel like that's a good number, a good plateau to say like she's done a lot for her age and where she's at, but she did call it a little bit quits, and I almost want to take a few points away from what I would give her otherwise for longevity. Aubrey, our guest Munson, you're up.
I found this conversation to be really interesting because I found her to be really interesting and kind of hard to rate also. I wasn't super familiar with her because we talked about this a little bit earlier. I kind of made my assumptions based off what I saw in The Mask and just kind of left and just kind of kept it there. So I didn't see a lot of her work. So watching this, I was like struck by one, how big of a star she actually is. Like that charisma is there. You can tell that she is a star, and all of the things that were said about her make complete sense to me. How much money she made, how, you know, she was one of the first women to do that. That all makes sense to me. In terms of her career, it's hard to like quantify how good or bad she is because she's a movie star. And when we talk about movie stars, we don't care about how good of an actor they are.
Yeah.
If you watch a movie with The Rock or Chris Pratt in it, you don't walk away and go, man, he really killed that scene. He really got into character. That's not how we do that. Were they entertaining? Are they captivating? And she's all that. But I kind of summarize her whole thing, and she feels like a throwback to old Hollywood to me. She can do a lot of different things, a lot of different comedic things. She's in all these comedies. She's playing different versions of characters. She's the funny person. She's a straight person. She's driving the plot. She's doing all kinds of things. She can sing. Like, she's a talented singer. She can dance. Like, she feels to me like a traditional old movie star. And I just love that about her. So I walk away from this, not being a fan before, as a fan. So it's kind of sad that she doesn't act anymore. So I say all that to say that I'd give her a 75.
All right. Case.
You guys have nailed quite a bit, so I'm just going to go through some quick bullet points. She became a leading lady early and very effectively, and then rode that wave all the way into retirement, which is very difficult to do, especially in a finicky Hollywood world. Massive box office draw while also being a highly paid actress. She was one of the highest paid actresses in an era when actresses were criminally underpaid. Mm-hmm. And that's very impressive. Amazing resume of elite performers she's performed with. And most of them, it's been at least 2 movies. And then the other part maintained a high level of name recognition despite being retired for almost a decade. So with all of that, and on top of what has already been mentioned, I'm going to give her an 81.
James, round us out.
When you think of Cameron Diaz, she is a full-blown movie star. She dominated pop culture for 2 full decades. Mm-hmm. I think what makes her unique to me is that she is a supremely talented comedic actress who just happens to also be stunningly attractive. And that is not something that we are used to. Like, breathtakingly attractive people aren't supposed to be naturally funny also. And so when you see that, you're like, oh, she's only going to do rom-coms. And that's not the case. She does raunchier comedy. She does dramas as well. And she just never kind of fit in the box that we wanted her to be in. And so that is why she was so captivating and kind of was one of the premier actresses for the last 2 decades before she called it quits. One of the best box office draws there is that we've covered anyway. And I respect that she called it quits when she made enough money. I would have done the same myself if I could. I'm going to give her an 81.
All right. It puts Cameron Diaz in 18th place, sandwiched between Stanley Tucci and Chris Rock.
Feels fair.
I like that Chris Rock. I like that she's close to there because I just feel like they're both stars in their own way, that they're comparable to each other.
Aubrey, did you plan this?
Aubrey also did Chris Rock.
Consistent.
Yeah, you are.
That's what it is.
I guess I didn't mention the exact number. She got a 78 on the dot, whereas Chris Rock is a 77.4. So it's a very slight lead there. And Tucci's at a 78.17. The ever so slight margin there. All right. So what does she have coming, James? Tell us a little bit about the coming soon portion.
Nothing. Probably lunch plans with family and friends. She's just living the good life, bro. Like hanging out with her daughter.
Investing in a few more startups, right?
Some of her husband's shows, probably.
You say this now, she's going to show up in a Marvel project. She'll be whatever in Fantastic Four.
Maybe like 20 years from now when like her kids are like out of college and she's like, all right, I'll do something again. And it's just like the 80th installment of Iron Man or something.
All right, next episode lands on February 10th. Our featured guest is Laura Beneke. She'll be making her return. She's been here a few times with us, and she's picking one of these 5 actors. Those 5 actors are Paul Giamatti, Jennifer Lopez, Chris Christopherson, Timothée Chalamet, or Glenn Powell. What do we like? What do we dislike? And what do we think Laura would choose?
Chalamet would be awesome because obviously every movie he's in is like pretty high profile. His career is just not very long, so that would be an interesting episode.
It's pretty young. He's
just getting started, and we know he's going to be a star for a long time. So
I'm cool with any of those, with the exception of Glenn Powell. I do not know who that is. I'd cover the other ones, but Glenn Powell would be like, cool. Start from day one. Have no idea how I feel about this person.
Kyle loves Glenn Powell from what I...
It's my birthday boy.
Yeah.
Shares my birthday. That's right. Glenn. He's fun. He's, again, young actor like Timothée Chalamet. Well, he's not as young as Timothy, but shorter career up to this point. But he's been in some decent flicks.
As a fan, I want to hear the Paul Giamatti episode.
Yeah, Giamatti would be interesting.
I want that one.
I think Giamatti's amazing.
I think Giamatti in like late 90s, early 2000s was like awesome.
Private Parts, yeah.
And then he kind of shifted towards like the TV thing where he's been ever since, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Chris Christopherson is also a musician, correct?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That factors into his Munson Meter score for sure.
He's in A Star. The before the Lady Gaga Bradley Cooper, he was in A Star Is Born, the '76 version with Barbra Streisand.
He was in Blade. He was in a bunch of other movies like that, and his drawl and voice is so iconic that I feel like range would be hard for him. Like you can't hide that voice into like a comedic role. I feel like it would be really difficult to do.
It's kind of like Sam Elliott. It's like you know what Sam Elliott's gonna be in the movie when you see it.
Chris Christopherson, we get to talk about the origin of one of the most famous songs of all time, and I will save it in case we do him.
Oh, okay.
Well, happy birthday, of course.
Save it, baby, save it.
We do have 2 slashies on this. We have 2 double threats: Chris Christopherson and J-Lo.
Yeah, I was about to say, if we're talking musicians, J-Lo's a big one. I mean, she did the Super Bowl last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago or whatever it was.
Any reason for us to watch Geely, I'm fully approved of that.
The first 10 minutes of Hustlers, me and my wife looked at each other and was like, is that the sexiest person we've ever seen in our entire lives? And it's 55-year-old J-Lo who's aging in reverse.
Dropping that ass.
Talk about a movie where the morals are all fucked up. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. She's great in that.
Give me a reason to listen to some old school J-Lo from the 90s, the TRL days, Waiting for Tonight. Oh.
And another time when we can talk about A-Rod.
Any time to shit on A-Rod is a good time for me, that's for sure.
All right, so here's the questions. Aubrey, who would you pick? It sounds like Giamatti would be your choice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an easy one. And then who do we think Laura would pick? Because that's really the question.
Who are her previous ones?
She did Bonnie Hunt the last time she was here,
Yes.
and she did...
It was 2 Chicago actors.
Oh, she did Gary Cole.
I'm going to go J-Lo for her.
No, J-Lo's from... She's still J-Lo from the Bronx.
I know she's from the block, but I'm going to go J-Lo for Laura.
No. It's got to be a Chicago. Where's Giamatti from? If he's from Chicago, that's it. Lock it in.
Lock it in. Dude, do a quick Google search on where these actors are from. I don't know where Giamatti's from.
Either do I.
We'll see. If she doesn't decide, we don't decide, the wheel decides. And we'll see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Aubrey, it's been a pleasure, man. Any plugs, any wise words for our audience? It's kind of your time to shine. Hot One style. This camera, this camera, this camera.
So, one, thank you guys for having me again. And I don't have a ton to plug because I've been kind of relaxing. I'm going to start writing soon, probably in these next coming weeks, to get back into some reviews. But please go to Movie Babble and check out some of the stuff going on there. There's some really good writers over there. And a lot of top 10 lists have just gone up. They do really good Sundance coverage because I was a part of that last year. So they're doing good stuff with that. They do award stuff over there. So there's a lot of good stuff over there. Spencer Henderson's top 10 list was one of the ones I read through that a couple times. He had a really good list. One of my favorites to look at of anybody from this past year. So I'll plug that. And I want to give you guys your flowers. I love this podcast. You guys do a great job. This is always great. And, I think people should be giving flowers to people in the right time. So you guys deserve it. This is great. I am honored to be a guest on here multiple times.
It's awesome having you, man.
Yep. You're the man. That's gonna keep me going for a while. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be bringing you back. That's an obvious one. So I'll shoot you a note. We'll coordinate. We'll figure it out.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Well, as we wrap up, you can find us on Twitter, Munson's at Movies. You can find us on the Instagram, the IG, Munson's at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from Cameron Diaz?
Keep saying shit like that, you're gonna get punched. All right, I'm high as fuck. I gotta get out of here. Watch your feet.
Munson's out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?